Hi everyone. The tree I have next to me is something a little special. This is a Seiju corkbark Chinese elm. It's a mutation, a special cultivar of Chinese elm, which is known for forming corky bark and really tiny little leaves. And these two traits make it excellent for bonsai. Now, on first look, this tree looks very attractive and well proportioned and all of that, but if you turn it around, you'll notice that we have a problem. The one drawback with Seiju elms is they are prone to diebacks. And this particular tree, I've had two smaller branches die back over the years, and you can see them here and here. And then last fall, disaster struck while the leaves on the rest of the tree turned a nice buttery yellow color. The leaves on this back branch turned brown, and I knew then that I was in trouble. But you can't really do anything about that until the following spring, because first you want to know for sure that the branch is dead and has died back, and second, you want to prune a tree like this when it's in active growth so that it will respond well. So we'll start by working on the dead branch here and kind of prune into it progressively to see just how far back it's died. And you can look at the cross section here and you can see there's no sap flowing. This is dead, and you can also tell that by the way that the cutter feels when you cut into the branch. And here's another cross-sectional view, and you'll notice this has a few growth rings on it, so this branch is a few years old, and this is definitely a little disaster in bonsai terms. So we'll just keep cutting back here. Definitely dead. Definitely dead. And we're going to go into the larger branch here. And this is still quite dead here, so we have to keep going. Yep, it died back quite a ways here. And this is starting to feel a little bit of moisture, so I think we're getting close to living wood here. Right, so we're going to leave it right there like that. Now, eventually we'll bring this branch down a little bit. The nice thing about Seiju elms is their wood is a little more flexible than standard Chinese elms. So we can take this branch down a little into that gap. But the other thing we need to do in order to try to get some growth in the area is prune the rest of the tree back. And it needs it anyway. We've got our branches growing into other branches here. Now, this tree propagates from cuttings, and I imagine from air layerings also, but I do have another smaller one that I grew from cuttings taken off this one, and we're just going to keep going back in here, and we're going to use roughly the same technique we did on the other Chinese elm that we worked on a few weeks ago. And at the end of the video, since this tree is not going to look all that impressive, I'm also going to give you a little update on that other Chinese elm, because it has been growing really well and it looks quite beautiful. Okay, that about finishes the pruning of this tree. And this is what we're left with after cutting it back to the point where we can hopefully induce some new growth to fill in for the branch that died back. So we'll do a slow 360 on this tree, and then we'll talk a little bit about its companion over here. And after that we'll show you an update on another Chinese elm we worked on. So this is our Seiju elm after a heavy pruning, and hopefully we'll come back to it later this spring with a lot of new growth on it. Now, I'm sure that some of you are wondering about the material that we cut off of this elm. And in fact, this does make a good cutting to propagate the tree from. And the only reason I'm not going to do that with this here is because I've already done it some years ago. This other tree is actually a child of the tree that we just worked on and was created from a root cutting approximately 12 years ago. And this has just been quietly and patiently growing in my growing area and waiting for me to get around to styling it. Now, good heavens, we have a lot of wind here. You may notice it's not really starting to cork yet on the lower part of the bark, and these trees do have to get quite old before that starts to happen. So we'll put this back in the growing area and put it in a bigger pot, and hopefully in a few years we'll get a chance to make a video from styling. As I promised, since our Seiju elm came out looking kind of bare, I wanted to show you something much nicer to look at here. This is the Chinese elm that we worked on 5 or 6 weeks ago, and if you'll take a look at it, you'll notice growth has been quite vigorous and it's filling out very nicely. I've also wired a few branches into position, but I've wired them very loosely because I don't want the wire biting in or scarring the bark on this beautiful old tree. So we'll do a slow 360 here and give you a look at where this tree is, and hopefully we'll be coming back to it again in a few months to do even more work on it. Thank you for watching, folks.